Is this finally the week the Titans call up Xavier Restrepo, undrafted free agent wide receiver who played with Cam Ward at Miami? There's a lot of injuries they're dealing with at the position. We are going to discuss if now is the time for Restrepo to get his shot. We're also grading Cam Ward's Week 11 performance. This is the Music City Audible. Let's get to it. Welcome everyone to another episode of the Music City Audible podcast, presented by Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, in partnership with 440 Sports. I'm Justin Graver. With me, as always, Justin Melo. And Justin, I think Titans fans have been clamoring for, I would say, months now to get a look at wide receiver Xavier Restrepo. The depth chart has taken numerous hits over the last, in the last game specifically, and we will discuss on today's show if now is the week that we might finally see him.
Yeah, we're certainly hoping that's the case, but we're going to go through all the roster decisions sort of that they have to make before getting to the Restrepo decision. What's the situation? Why do we want to see him? Why do we believe it's justified now? And what are the chances that we actually see him against the Seahawks in Week 12? But I think we have a really good Restrepo conversation on deck. But before we get to that, as you said, we're going to start with the Cam Ward grade conversation.
Right. And as we discussed yesterday when it comes to Cam Ward, like reviewing the tape shines light on more positive things, I think, than you might pick up just watching it live. And so we're going to talk about the grade from that standpoint. But at the same time, as we've been, I think, all season, we're going to be a little bit harsher than, like, we're not grading him on the he's a rookie in his 10th game playing in a dysfunctional system curve. We're grading him against NFL quarterbacks with the situational context in mind, obviously, because that influences how he plays and how it looks like he plays and what he's really able to do. Like, how much can he really do if they're going to run the ball on 3rd and 3 and then kick a field goal? It's like you take the ball out of his hands. You can't penalize Cam Ward for that. But at the same time, you miss it deep to Aya Manor multiple times in this game. You have a bunch of batted balls at the line of scrimmage that just, it's a waste of a down, a waste of a chance to get a first down. So ultimately, Justin, we graded Cam Ward for this game a C+, which, if you see on the chart, if you're watching on YouTube, is in the upper half, I guess, of his grades for this season. It's not a top 5 game for him, though. And I think, despite all the challenges, despite playing the number 1 defense in the NFL, when it comes to scoring points, like, the quarterback is the captain of the ship. And I just think it's really tough to give him a grade higher than in the C range when you only lead 1 touchdown drive. And I know that, like, the team is false starting all over the place and setting him back, and there's drops, and it's not always super easy to lead a touchdown drive in this system. But like I just said, there were chances. They could have had more chances if he hits some of the downfield throws, if he doesn't have passes batted, if he doesn't get strip sacked. Like, there was enough negative that you can put a lot of blame on Cam Ward for this offense not being more productive. Now, everything I've said throughout the week still holds in the sense that, like, he shouldn't have to be perfect for the team to score more than 1 touchdown. Like, the team around him should help him more. But regardless of if they are or aren't, he didn't necessarily elevate the offense in this game, so you can't give him really a higher grade than a C+.
Yeah, I don't think we have to complicate it. I think C+ is fine, because when you're grading a player in this way, and it's funny, we talked about yesterday's pod and the way the world operates. You do have to sort of analyze it on a play-by-play basis, right? Like, when you're handing out a letter grade, you've got to look at the positives versus the negatives and then come to a conclusion. And for me, I kind of graded 6 negative plays, and you mentioned all of them. For me, it was the 3 passes batted down at the line of scrimmage, which is on him because it's a mechanics issue. The two misses, to Alec Aya Manor, where I have no doubt that he had Alec available on both of those plays and simply didn't hit him. And then the strip sack. Even though I don't love the way Dan Moore repped that in pass protection on that specific play, quarterback's got to protect the football when he's being sacked, and he failed to do that. So I had him down for 6 negative plays. Well, how do we come back up to a C+, if you will? Well, in a gotta-have-it situation, he leads a 95-yard touchdown drive without probably his 2 best wide receivers in Calvin Ridley and Chimere Dike. In fact, Nick Holt said that the big completion to Chig was kind of supposed to go to one of the receivers, but they were down so many of them, they put Chig in that role. And hat tip to Chig for stepping up in that spot and making the play. Goes back to a lot of what we talk about in terms of guys don't make enough plays for Cam Ward. Chig made one on that play, but Cam delivered a perfect ball from a placement and accuracy perspective. So you lead that 95-yard drive. You make plays with your legs, which he did a better job of escaping pressure. You throw a game-tying touchdown with a minute and a half right after it. You get the big play. To me, brought Cam Ward back up to a C+ after kind of analyzing a bunch of the negative plays that he had. And also, again, and he gets a little bit of grace as well for some of the supporting cast stuff. As much as we'd love to see him overcome everything bad that they do around him, we also realize that they did false start a bunch of times, and that puts you in a hole. The 2 plays to Mason Kinsey that I think, one of them especially we're going to talk about more in a second, we've kind of come around to putting both of those on Kinsey. I mean, the second one, you and I always put on Kinsey where he gets the hands on it and can't come down with it. After reviewing the tape, we don't feel any differently about it, right? I thought it was a catchable ball. And just like Chig did later on in the game, I'd like to see you make a play for your quarterback when you are within reason to make that play. But the first one, which, caused up quite the storm on Twitter, if you will, I kind of, and you and I agree, like we kind of lean towards that one was mostly on Kinsey. A lot of it just due to a lack of chemistry between the two of them. But I can't quite understand why Kinsey turns back to the inside shoulder. And if so, if it's designed that way, why it would be designed that way. You got quarterback rolling right. I'd like to see him throw that ball as he did to the outside shoulder, also closer to the sideline, because in my opinion, by design, that play was wide open. But by general design, if you're asking him to throw the ball back to the inside shoulder towards the middle of the field across his body, you're way likelier to put the ball in harm's way, right? Like a chance that there are defenders hanging around that area. Whereas I feel like if you're putting that ball on the sideline, it's hopefully either my guy's got a shot at it or it's going incomplete. Whereas I think you're risking a turnover by designing that back towards the inside shoulder. General design speaking. But anyway, for me, all that stuff kind of brings him back up to a C+, despite us rightfully acknowledging, for people who say that we never do, rightfully acknowledging there was about 6 negative plays that I wish were different, and he would have played a perfect game if they were different, essentially. But I think this was somewhat of a mixed bag.
Yeah, I think that's ultimately, and I want to put a pin in that play you're discussing because I have thoughts on it too, and we're going to get to them when we talk about Xavier Restrepo. But, on the subject of guys making plays for him, you mentioned a bunch of examples, but how about Elikai Manor not getting 2 feet inbounds on what I thought was a perfect sideline ball?
Yes.
How about Van Jefferson having 2 catchable 50-50 contested, give your receiver a shot at it, balls thrown his direction, and on both instances he knows there's a defender right there in his chest. With tight coverage, you have to go back to the ball. You have to attack the ball in the air and go make a play. I thought those were good throws by Cam Ward. It's not like, he's not going to put that in a spot where only Van Jefferson can get it and the defender can't. Like, that's just a very routine throw it up for your guy and go make a play or try to draw a flag or something. Yeah, fight through the contact to go get the ball. Don't just let the defensive back stay between you and the ball and knock it down. Like you got to make an effort there if you're the receiver. So guys not doing that enough, but still too many negative plays, I think, for Cam Ward to have a better grade here. Like the pass is batted down. I think it feels like a small issue because the ball falls incomplete right away, but like those are this offense doesn't get very many chances to run plays in general. Like if that goes for 3 yards versus being incomplete, it could change everything. And that would be a failure of a play if it only goes for 3 yards, right? So a lot that he
percentage would be better. 3 more completions, chance at a first down, move the sticks. They had 2nd and 7's better than 2nd and 10, right? Or whatever the down and distance was. But you get the point.
So that's where we're at. We need to see more prolonged stretches of good, consistent play. Like I think he opened the game strong and he closed the game strong. But in the middle, especially that one possession where he misses Elikai Manor and then gets strip sacked, like you can't have those lulls and beat the best defense in football, which the Texans have been. So that's Cam Ward's grade. If we look at the chart again here to wrap up this conversation, like the last few games, we're moving in the right direction. Like we'd love to get again. A multi-touchdown game would be phenomenal to have it. Just one of them, right? At this point, I'll take one. I'd love to have like 4 down the stretch here in these last 7 games, but I will settle for 1 because I've been so disappointed by that thus far. And let's see if we can get like a grade that is like a B or higher again this season. Does it require a Titans win for him to get a B or higher? I don't think it requires a win, but it requires an offensive showing where the loss is because the defense gives up too many points, not because the offense only scores 1 or 0 touchdowns, which has been the case for most of the games this season. Any final thoughts on that, or should I move us to our Sinkers Beverages message?
No, I think we're about to get into Xavier Restrepo as you hit the listeners, not the readers. No one reads this. The listeners, the viewers, with a little mid-episode ad.
Yeah, ad break. Hashtag ad. Hashtag Sinkers Beverages, the premier wine, spirits, and beer store in East Nashville, have been serving the community since 1985. Sinkers has a super knowledgeable staff that is proud to help you, whether you're throwing a large party, you need a lot of booze, or a themed party, themed event, and you want themed drinks. Sinkers Beverages, super knowledgeable staff that will help you pick out the perfect choice of beverage for you. It's a must-have on Sundays for Titans fans as the team continues to lose. Winless still at Nissan Stadium this year. Got to have a nice cold one in your fridge to wash down those terrible games. So head over to Sinkers Beverages today, or if you can't leave the house, they're available on Uber Eats. Just search Sinkers Beverages in your Uber Eats app. All right, so let's talk now, Justin, about the Xavier Restrepo convo. I think Titans fans have been foaming at the mouth to see something positive from Xavier Restrepo. We know the connection that he has with Cam Ward, so we'll talk about that in a moment. But I think we got to talk about why he might finally get an opportunity this week. Obviously, we touched on this very briefly. It had just happened. The news had just come out during our Sunday live stream talking about Calvin Ridley's broken fibula, a heartbreaking injury for a guy who was dealing with a hamstring, worked really hard to get back, makes a catch on the first play of the game, probably a big part of the passing game plan because they've been without him for 3 weeks, and now he's finally back. You want to get him involved. They get him involved on the first play, and he just gets tackled awkwardly and breaks a bone in his leg. So unfortunate, a brutal injury. I feel terrible for Calvin. It might have been his last snap in a Titans uniform. I would say it's likely that it was his last snap in a Titans uniform. And it's just a bummer. A major what if for the season is, what if Calvin Ridley had stayed healthy? What would we have seen from his connection with Cam Ward that was, so hyped by everyone, including us, during the offseason and training camp stuff? And then this is the result. This is how that season comes to an end, and potentially how their pairing as a QB wide receiver duo comes to an end. It's just brutal.
Yeah, I mean, Mike McCoy opened his press conference, I believe it was on Monday, with words about Calvin Ridley, talking about how gutted he is, how excited he was to be back and help the team despite the record. I have no doubt that Calvin Ridley wanted to be out there, and he wanted to play well down the stretch, and maybe he would have. Remember, started slow last year and finished strong, so maybe he's a second half season kind of guy. Won't get that opportunity this year. He will be placed on season-ending IR at some point, either on Tuesday or Wednesday. And the Titans are going to have to make a move at wide receiver, at least one, probably multiple, because Chimere Dike also left Sunday's game with a chest contusion. Now, if you recall, he took a pretty big pop on a punt return, fumbled it, recovered it himself. It was quite a mouthful here because he leaves the game, gets checked for a concussion. He clears that protocol, but he also has a chest contusion injury, so he's ruled out of the game anyway, despite clearing protocol. We'll have to monitor him throughout the week. Paul Kuharsky did report on Tuesday that it's trending towards him having a chance to play, so it's not all bad news right away with Chimere Dike, but I wouldn't quite say he's out of the weeds yet. And Alec Iomanner might be one to monitor at practice too. He was in and out of that game on Sunday. Can't quite remember what the issue was, but there was something bothering him that led him to being in and out of the lineup throughout the Texans contest.
I think somebody said it was a hamstring. Mike McCoy, I think, on Sunday said it was a hamstring.
There you go. And we know that's been a lot of fun in Tennessee with those hamstrings. So we'll see what his status is throughout the week. It's also one of those things, like, just because he came back and fought through it doesn't mean it's not going to bother him a lot on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Like, sometimes that adrenaline mid-game or something that they give you mid-game helps with it. Don't know that you're going to be able to practice the same way. So we'll monitor those two guys while also acknowledging that Ridley's going on IR. They've got to make at least one move at wide receiver. That is guaranteed.
So who are the for sure healthy wide receivers on the active 53 as we record this right now?
Well, healthy on the 53 right now is Van Jefferson, Mason Kinsey, and I guess that's it. I mean, do we include Iomanner and DK in that? I mean, they're TBD. Right. So Van Jefferson and Mason Kinsey are the only two that are definitely available for Sunday's game. I imagine there's going to be at least a third, and it might be four. It might be both DK and Iomanner, but I'd be pretty surprised if both of them were hurt.
Yeah, I feel like both, like when this happens, I don't know, just history of the NFL tells us that like one of these guys is probably going to miss this game, especially for a team that's not like fighting for playoff contention or something. Now, James Prochet has been the next guy up at times throughout this season, and they've already used all 3 practice squad call-ups for James Prochet. So if they want James Prochet to play on Sunday, they will have to make him an active member of the roster. I would expect that's the corresponding move to moving Calvin Ridley to IR. Yes. When those things happen, is that they'll just fill that spot with Prochet. But even with Prochet, if you're dealing with a situation where DK and Iomanner are both out of this game, that's where the door really opens to getting Xavier Restrepo on the field, because who can play outside, right? Are they going to run one receiver sets with Van Jefferson as the receiver, and then you have 3 slots in Kinsey, Prochet, and Xavier Restrepo? Yeah, Chig and Gunnar Helm. Or, I think Prochet is one of those guys similar to DK, where he is definitely his best position is probably a slot, but he can give you a little bit of Z action. He can give you a little bit of versatility. Mason Kinsey, as a 5-year veteran in this league, should be able to at least know what to do on the outside.
They play him there. Not... I mean, they play him there in the preseason. Like, they think he can play Z.
So he could get some snaps out there. I think you're going to see a ton of Van Jefferson snaps, way more than we would ever want to see at this point in the season. But I think Xavier Restrepo has a real shot to get some action this weekend, and maybe he's just active and he plays 4 snaps or something, and he's not really a big part of the game plan. I hope that's not the case, because what a letdown that would be to finally see him on the roster, but then you don't actually see him on the field outside of special teams. But I think there's a few reasons to believe this could be the week, and number one is that Mike McCoy talked about it on Monday.
Yeah, I've got a couple things to say if you don't mind. Well, number one, I'll answer that first. Mike McCoy was asked about it on Monday, and I thought he dropped a really interesting hint. They asked him about Xavier Restrepo playing this weekend, and he said, well, he's been working on kickoff, a lot more lately, or kicking game. I think he's been working kicking game a lot more lately. That's not something he was doing earlier in the year, yada, yada. You could dig me. And he went on to praise him for essentially, having more versatility now than he had at the beginning of the year. I'll be honest with you, I don't really care about that. But if they need to use that stupid justification in their own mind to get Xavier Restrepo up, then so be it. If that's what was holding him back this whole time and you have Mason Kinsey playing instead, then so be it. You feel like he's now a kickoff guy and rah, he's so versatile and special teams, then yes, then please, let that be your stupid reason to go ahead and finally use Xavier Restrepo. I also want to make a quick point on James Prochet, because you said that's probably the expected move. When Bones, the Tuesdays, they do the press conferences, the coordinators do, and Bones immediately brought up James Prochet as an emergency kickoff and punt returner if Shimmeray DK can't play. They are definitely going to add Prochet to the 53-man roster once Ridley goes on IR. And maybe a portion of this fan base will lose their mind, because I think it means that Restrepo won't play, but it doesn't mean that. It doesn't mean that yet. By any stretch of the imagination. Now, call me stupid, because I guess I don't really care to evaluate this staff, because they're all going to be fired anyway.
Same.
I would be so curious to see what they do if DK and Iomanner both play. Are they really going to go with Jefferson, DK, Iomanner, Kinsey, and Prochet? They might. That's 5 receivers. Heck, even if one of them doesn't play, is it within the realm of possibility that they go with 4 and say they go with DK, Jefferson, Kinsey, and Prochet? Would they be stupid enough to do that? The point that I'm trying to make is, no matter what, I want to see Xavier Restrepo ahead of Mason Kinsey this week. I am sick and tired of Mason Kinsey, okay? It is what it is. Like, Paul Kuharski makes a great point, and it made me think. It made me think about something that I know the way this league operates, and I can't wrap my head around it when it comes to Mason Kinsey. Who is that D tackle? I can't remember the name, but you will. Hook him. He was Devondre Sweat's backup last year.
Keandre Coburn.
They cut Keandre Coburn in like May or whatever it was, like really early. We all acted kind of surprised. Wow, they're cutting. Like, we thought he was going to maybe make the roster. And like, I'm going to give them credit on this one, but I'll get to the point. When they cut Keandre Coburn, I thought, wow, like, I was shocked by it. Wow, he's going to latch on somewhere else. He really hasn't. Like, I think he went to Vegas, which had a huge need at defensive tackle, and he couldn't latch on there. And then I started having conversations with like NFL agents, just kind of generalized philosophy conversations about how the NFL operates, okay? The bottom of NFL rosters is so competitive, okay? Just because you belonged last year, and that was Keandre Coburn, doesn't mean you're going to belong the following year. You are always looking for ways to get better at the bottom of that roster. There are always 700 guys in the XFL and developmental leagues on practice squads that are trying to take Keandre Coburn's job. And if the Keandre Coburns of the NFL are not on their P's and Q's and are not getting better and are not showing commitment, even if they are, sometimes the other bottom just keeps getting better, okay? That's what happened to Keandre Coburn. How that has not happened to Mason Kinsey in like 5 years or whatever, however long it's been, is pretty beyond us, right? Like, how competitive the bottom of these rosters are. And listen, credit to Kinsey in a sense that it wasn't like, I think he got brought in by John Robinson, that it wasn't just John Robinson, and it wasn't just Mike Vrabel, and then it wasn't just Rand Carthon, and then it wasn't just Brian Callahan. And now it's Mike McCoy, and now it's Mike Borgani. Like, all of them like Mason Kinsey enough to keep him around all this time. But it really is a bit of a head-scratcher when you understand the way the rest of the NFL works. And Paul Kuharski said it, I think, on his post-game pod, and he wrote it in an article too. Like, how have they just stuck by this guy as the status quo for this long? It really is mind-blowing. So I don't care if Chimere Dike and Alec Iomanner are both healthy on Sunday. Like,
healthy or unhealthy?
No, I don't care if they're both healthy. You still have room to get Xavier Restrepo up there in place of Mason Kinsey. And listen, Xavier Restrepo might suck. In fact, I generally trust, believe it or not, I really do. I trust these people, everyone who works in the NFL, to make these determinations. But I know Mason Kinsey sucks. You have seen it for 4 or 5 years where he's just been a rah-rah guy on your practice squad, okay? You know that he's not the answer. In fact, now you've got more proof than ever because you're coming off a game where he had an opportunity to make 2 big plays for his quarterback, and he failed in both instances. You are 1-9. You've seen this guy for years. You literally have nothing to lose at this point. It is time to see Xavier Restrepo. And I normally hate being this guy, but I think it's just way too easy to justify this side of the argument in this specific case, in this very specific case, because I always trust an NFL's team ability to make this determination. But enough is enough. You traded Jarvis Brownlee, Roger McCreary. You want to see some young players. I know you didn't draft this guy, but you wanted to see Marcus Harris, and you wanted to see Jalen Armour-Davis after you brought him in, and you've wanted to see David Martin Robinson at different points as he's like, now it's time to see Xavier Restrepo. These wide receivers gave you every reason to, paired with the injuries that happened, it's time to make it happen.
And it's not just what we saw in this last game for me that makes Mason Kinsey a player you shouldn't be playing. Like, his role before this game and before some of the other injuries was just, he was coming up on special teams at times throughout the year and getting absolutely destroyed as a blocker on the punt return unit and getting blocked into his own teammate and taking out the legs of his teammate and allowing a punt return by him. Like, he hasn't been good on special teams, and now he hasn't been good on offense. There's no reason to keep trotting him out there expecting it to get better. This is a fifth-year player. It's not a rookie who's going to make a mistake in week 4 and then correct it by week 10. We keep saying fifth-year player. I probably feel like I should confirm that. If that's wrong, let us know in the comments. But
John Robinson brought him in. I know this team has fired a lot of people, but we're 3 GMs ago.
And the fact that he's survived that many regimes, like you said, should be maybe a credit to his preparation and work ethic behind the scenes, but also like you have to be getting better and proving that you still belong after all this time when they took a chance on you way back when and stashed you on the practice squad. And what we saw on Sunday, granted, it wasn't a ton of opportunities. It's not like he had 12 targets and didn't catch any of them. He only had 2, but still, when you were given those opportunities, you got to maximize those plays. And one of the biggest reasons that I think Xavier Restrepo should play over Kinsey in this game is that route, the one that I said we were going to stick a pin in, the play where he runs the wheel out and up, that Cam Ward threw it outside and Kinsey turned inside. Now there's been a lot of discourse on the timeline about this particular play. I still maintain my belief that putting blame on either of them is sort of wrong, and that it's just a situation where they didn't get to rep it. And I think somebody at the podium even said Mason Kinsey has never actually run that.
About them not repping it.
Yeah, that Mason Kinsey's never actually run that route for this team in practice. So like, how is he supposed to be on the same page as his quarterback if he's never run it? Well, I'll tell you how. Because there's a guy on the roster who is on the same page as his quarterback, and he hasn't played a single game this year. Xavier Restrepo ran this route. This was a commonly used concept for Miami last year with Cam Ward at quarterback and Restrepo as the primary go-to career leader in receiving yards receiver at Miami, college program record in receiving yards, and broke Michael Irvin and Reggie Wayne's records. Like, this guy isn't a complete nobody. And I know there's plenty of guys who are great in college football and just don't have what it takes to excel in the NFL. But let's see it. Like you're saying, there's nothing to lose. Like, why not? Why not? Is he going to go out there and run the wrong route and cause an interception or drop a ball that hits him in the hands? Okay, great. So are the other guys. Like, who cares? Who cares?
I have faith in his ability to not run wrong routes, right? Like, the guy's a student of the game. He's a great route runner. Clearly, he's not a great athlete because he tested poorly. That's a big reason why he went undrafted. So all that production at Miami came from somewhere, right? And it's got to be, in my opinion, from being a student of the game, being on the same page with your quarterback, being a detailed, nuanced route runner, like all of those things. And on top of it, as you said, like Nick Holtz said at the podium, so we're not making it up, they ran this a bunch at Miami last year. He said that on Tuesday. It's a concept we wanted to put in the playbook because Cam was really familiar with it. And we decided that we wanted to call it in this game. Granted, it probably was supposed to be with Shimmeray DK. I'm going to guess DK specifically.
I don't think so. I said that a few times. DK's on the field. DK's on the field running the deeper route that pulls the coverage into the end zone.
Ridley? I guess it's supposed to be Ridley, most likely.
That's my guess.
It definitely wasn't supposed to be Mason Kinsey, right? So because Kinsey's in that game on offense more due to the injury, so it's probably supposed to be Calvin Ridley. And if it's Ridley, it's definitely getting run the right way, because even if you land on the belief that that ball should go to the inside shoulder and is designed to go inside, which is what Mason Kinsey did, Nick Holtz at least admits that Kinsey probably gets up or doesn't. He got too much upfield, I think he said, and also probably should get a little bit wider. So even if go ahead.
Yeah. So you actually tweeted out and you asked a few former NFL quarterbacks and quarterback trainers, like, what is your assessment of this play? And Sean McAvoy pulled 2 examples of this from Miami, where the route is actually designed to break out and then be thrown back inside. Right. Now, something that Miami didn't do on these concepts is roll the pocket and have your quarterback on the run, which I think adds an incredible layer of difficulty. As you were saying, throwing across your body, putting in harm's way, all the stuff you said back when we were having the conversation earlier about Cam Ward's grade. But Miami did run this concept where the route does get thrown back inside. However, on the 2 examples, at least, that McAvoy tweeted, Restrepo is feet from the boundary.
Yes.
And I don't even think Kinsey's outside the hash when he turns back to this ball. So it could have very well been that Kinsey turned the right way, but didn't get wide enough. and that the ball was in the right spot, but the receiver wasn't wide enough. And if the receiver had turned the other way, then it wouldn't have mattered if he was wide enough or not wide enough, because he would have been right there on the ball. So there's a lot of ways to interpret this play, and I'm sure when they broke it down in the film room as a team, they pointed out all these different areas. Yep. And I also think there's an element to it's drawn up one way. And this is something you hear former players and current players talk about all the time. Just because it's drawn up one way doesn't mean it's going to play out that way. When you have to also adapt to what's unfolding on the field in front of you. And I also think Cam Ward saw where Restrepo was running and saw him turn initially looking over his outside shoulder and saw the space there that he was running towards and said, it doesn't matter where this play was designed to go. Look at where you're running to, look at which way you're looking, and look at where the space is. I'm going to throw it to that space. And then Kinsey faked out his own quarterback after looking over his outside shoulder, came back to the inside to run it, quote unquote, how it was designed without actually hitting the landmark because he didn't get wide enough because he's never repped the play before. It's like, it's not really his fault, but it is his fault, but it's also the quarterback's fault because he's got to see it in the middle of the play. And there's a lot of factors at play. But the overarching point is, Xavier Restrepo would do it right.
Yes.
Because he's done it with Cam many times before.
I have full confidence that Xavier Restrepo, because I think you're right, there's a lot of nuance to this play. I think you can put a little bit of it on each party, right? Most likely. But then again, the portion that goes on Cam Ward, I'm sorry, maybe it sounds biased. I'm going to question the design of the play because I hate if the design is to roll right and then throw it back inside across the body. And it might be. A lot of smart people are saying that might be the case. I have a problem with the design. But the overarching theme that I come away with is no matter what the design is, I trust Cam Ward and Xavier Restrepo to be on the same page on that play, because they were on the same page so many times at Miami on a very clearly similar play that influenced the Titans' decision to put this into the playbook, because Nick Holtz said that much on Tuesday. So for me, enough is enough with all this. I want to see Xavier Restrepo play on Sunday. I'm not looking forward to Sunday's game. I think they're going to get hammered by the Seattle Seahawks on Sunday. It would add a lot more interest to me, viewing interest, if Xavier Restrepo is active and plays at wide receiver. Again, I don't care what happens with DK and Io Manor. I want to see Restrepo out there at receiver with DK, Io. It's a perfect setup too. Let DK can play some slot. He can play Z. Restrepo can do the same. Van Jefferson or Alec Io Manor, whichever one's available, could be your X. Enough is enough. Give him a chance.
I think it's time. You just have nothing to lose. And one last sign that it might be coming is a tweet sent out by Xavier Restrepo on Tuesday morning. He just tweeted Romans 12:2, Romans chapter 12, verse 2, with a heart and a little cross emoji. And I decided to, what is that Bible verse? What does it mean? Why would he tweet that? Does this mean anything? Is he just tweeting because he's a faithful man? Or does this have some larger meaning? And the verse is, quote, "Be joyful in hope, patient in affliction, faithful in prayer." And when I tweeted this, because I quote tweeted Restrepo with the actual verse, I put patient in affliction in bold because it sounded a little bit like we're reading into things. And I don't think he's going to announce on a Tuesday morning on Twitter that he's playing this week, if that is the case. But hey, that maybe is that patience paying off here with finally an opportunity for Xavier. We will have to wait until at least later in the week, possibly until Sunday, to really find out. But again, I just think that there's no reason. You've run out of reasons not to do it now. The guy you played ahead of him made mistakes. You have injuries you're dealing with. You're 1-9. Your quarterback didn't have chemistry with the guy you were playing ahead of him. You know he has chemistry with this guy. There's just simply no excuse to continue to not play Restrepo. And I also acknowledge it might not be this week. It still might not be this week. But the deeper we get into the season and the more games you lose and the longer it takes the offense to fully function as a whole for a 4-quarter game, the more I'm going to push to see Restrepo and the even fewer excuses you have. Because when it gets to be a totally lost season, which it already is, and you're just searching for any way to spark the offense, maybe try the guy that the quarterback has 100% trust in. Just maybe try it. Just give him one target and see what happens. That's all I have to say on the matter.
We're on the same page. We really hope Restrepo makes his debut this Sunday against the Seattle Seahawks. We will be back tomorrow to talk more about the Tennessee Titans. We've got a really interesting nugget I believe we're going to do tomorrow on the defense.
Depends if some news breaks before then.
Depends if some news breaks before then on the defense, the NFL draft. There's something we've come up with. We also got another episode on a coaching candidate that we're really excited to talk about. One whose name was floated absolutely out of nowhere, who I think Tennessee fans either absolutely despise or still hold near and dear to their heart. Not quite sure, but you might know exactly who you're talking about. Those are our next two scheduled episodes of the Music City Audible, dropping on Wednesday and Thursday. And then, of course, a little early in the week, but of course, we'll be here Sunday as well with an instant live stream reaction to the 10-catch, 100-yard Xavier Restrepo game that's going to happen against the Seahawks on Sunday. But until we are back tomorrow, y'all stay safe out there and tighten up.
A Broadway sports media production.